Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here tonight on WWE SmackDown Live. We had the number one contender finally named for AJ Styles, for AJ to compete, putting up the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam, the second biggest show of the year. That's going to be coming to you live from the Barclays Center. This is a big match for everyone involved, and I think this one is probably the best bet that they could have. WWE ended up paying off on the rumored card that was out there on the internet. You can see it in various places. I made a video about it the other day, just giving my thoughts, and I honestly thought that this was one of the best SummerSlam cards that they've put together in quite a while, seeing how I have not watched SummerSlam the last 2 years. I did not watch SummerSlam 2016 or 2018, but this year, the main match that we're going to be getting from SmackDown Live is going to be AJ Styles putting up the championship against Samoa Joe. I had heard this was going to be the match, but as I was sitting here watching SmackDown Live, there was a match on the show, CM Almas going up against Rusev, where I thought this was kind of a weird situation to put two heels up against each other. I thought that these were the last two matches that AJ Styles had, even though AJ had won both of those matches. They were both pretty good. Would this sort of be a number one contenders match to see who would go to SummerSlam? As the match paid off, there was no number one contender stipulation named. There was no sort of press conference after, and I thought that it was sort of weird. Paige came down to the ring to make her announcement on who AJ Styles' contender was going to be, and from out of nowhere, AJ Styles was jumped by Samoa Joe, and Samoa Joe signed the contract. I'm guessing that's going to put into place AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. We're going to pay off on all of the history that is TNA, Global Impact Wrestling, whatever that you would like to call it. I'm always going to refer to it as TNA because of the fact that I've been following the product since 2002. The same reason that I still call WWE WWF every once in a while, because it's just burned into the brain that way. If you go back, you think about all those Impact years, Joe and AJ Styles were two of the best homegrown talent that was in that company, even though AJ Styles spent some time in WCW. Samoa Joe went through Ring of Honor before both ended up there, and they honestly really created magic in the bottle. And even though they were wrestling there during what we're going to do is we're going to pay off on the traditions of TNA Impact Wrestling. AJ Styles and Samoa Joe were the guys that honestly built that place. And Samoa Joe was the guy that was in the main event going up against Kurt Angle when TNA reached the highest highs that it ever was at. And as TNA was constantly pushing itself, bringing in more stars that were more familiar to a WWE-based fan trying to branch out and become an alternative, AJ and Samoa Joe found themselves falling down the card. If you can remember going back into the whole TNA Bound for Glory series, something that I thought that was a really, really good idea was the fact that you were pushing tournament style matches, making every match matter on Impact. Not every single match was very predictable at the same pace, but as they were doing those in the first Bound for Glory series, Samoa Joe scored -4 points to end the tournament. I think that Joe lost every match that he was in, and even lost the match via disqualification, and that is one of the reasons why he did not gain any points and ended up with negative points. AJ Styles, no matter where you put him on the card, he was in tag matches. He was Christian Cage's lackey. At the time he finally left TNA, they started to push him again, but the problem was they didn't want to pay him. But I thought that this was a match that they could have put together for WrestleMania a few years ago in Orlando. I thought that it would have been a very funny thing that WWE normally likes to pull off, like basically pulling a rib, where Impact Wrestling wrestled at Universal Studios in Orlando at the Impact Zone for so long, and now here we are doing AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe one more time on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania, with the thousands of fans in attendance, to just make the Impact Zone look like the smallest thing in the world. Honestly, when it comes down to it, I think this is the match that AJ Styles could lose. I know that when I looked at the last pay-per-view against Rusev, there was a little glimmer of, what if in the back of my mind because of the fact that AJ has held the championship for so long that you just think maybe this is going to be just like Jinder Mahal beating Randy Orton, that, on any given day, anyone in WWE, they're there for a reason. Anybody can beat the champion on any one given day. And that's why they have these matches on house shows and on SmackDown and Raw and everything like that. But when it comes down to it, Samoa Joe, even though, he really, he's had main event matches sporadically throughout his time in WWE, he's a guy that honestly doesn't lose that much. He's a guy that they've always really kept hot. Somebody that you really know could go out there and handle their business against just about anybody on the card. Joe versus Braun Strowman with some really good matches. I think that Joe's got a really good chance of winning this match. And I honestly think that as of right now, I think Joe might be the favorite to beat AJ Styles, because who wouldn't want to see Joe versus AJ, 3 months in a row on WWE pay-per-view? I think that's going to be a pretty good thing. So I'm really looking forward to SummerSlam 2018. I know it's going to be coming up in a few weeks here on the WWE Network. And as of right now, I got my money on Samoa Joe.